What I want is an iPad case, but the side of the case just has macro keys.
Oh.
And I could like set them up with apps to be like the pencil shortcuts that I need, or like copy paste, or just there's a few like standard keys. And I'm like, give me a case that's got like just a few keys on one side.
You know what this reminds me of is those books for little kids that have the buttons on the side and you press them and they play sounds.
I mean, if I could tie it into
like that.
if I could tie it into my soundboard app,
for sure,
it'd be great for this podcast.
Yes.
For all those sound bites that I've yet to deploy.
It's a pretty good idea.
It's a great idea. I mean,
what do you think one would do if they wanted to, like make something like that happen, but they don't have the money to make it happen? What do you think the solution to that would be?
Well, Daniel, they would have a Kickstarter.
Oh, tell me more. What's that? I know we never talk about those on the show.
Hush. Have we started?
I think we've started.
Oh dear. Well, then I won't tell you about all this other stuff.
Why not?
Because it's just like whatever.
Oh.
Okay, yeah. So if we have technically started, then that would ultimately be classified as a pre-show, which means that we're now on the pre-show.
Well, thank you for letting me know. Where's your soundbite for that?
It's just, I'm working on it. Those generative models take a while, compute.
Well, that is true.
And what have you.
Yeah.
I don't even have my phone on silent.
Oh my gosh.
I've been working on the automations. Like I've been diving back into Siri shortcuts to try to improve automations. And I feel like shortcuts could be really, really powerful if Apple didn't make it so hard.
It does kind of feel like the interface sort of gets in the way, and I can think of what I want it to do easier than I can make it do it.
Yeah.
Did they ever add that thing where you could tell Siri what you wanted and have it make you a shortcut?
That's going to be one of the AI features in 18.1, and that's not out there.
Because that seems like that might solve the problem.
Maybe.
If it was good.
So, like, I set my action button to be, like, previously it was just changing between two focus modes. Instead of using, like, actual silent, I put the little silent switch on a shortcut on my home screen or my lock screen, and then I use it to switch between, because what I was using my mute switch before is like I take a lot of phone calls, and so when I'm on the phone and you get like a message or someone else calls you, it just like vibrates on your ear, and I hate it.
Annoying.
Hate it. And so I had previously set up my mute switch to mute everything, like no sounds at all, don't even vibrate. And then I would accidentally like leave it in that mode forever, and then my phone wouldn't make any sounds. Fine. And so instead of doing that this time, I set my switch to like a focus mode, and that focus mode is silence all notifications.
Sure.
But then I have the other thing set to just vibrate all the time. So it vibrates all the time, and then I can turn on and off the vibrate using the focus mode. But I wanted to add, I still get like all the notifications. And so I wanted an easier way to do not disturb. And so I've been trying to set it up so that like normally when I press the button, it goes into my silent focus mode. But whenever I set the phone face down, if I press the button, I want it to go into do not disturb. Because you can set up a Pixel phone to do that, where you just set it face down, it goes into do not disturb. Mm-hmm. Like, that's what I want. I want to set my phone face down, it goes into D&D. And like, love it. And they have finally added in shortcuts a way to configure orientation to an automation. So it's like, check orientation, if then do this.
Sure.
And so I have one set up that's like, if face down, do not disturb. If otherwise, silent mode, focus mode. But the automation stuff doesn't let you set triggers to orientation. You have to set triggers based upon like location or time of day or whatever. And so
that's
like
a shame.
I can't set the trigger to the orientation. I have to set the trigger to something else, like you opened an app or you arrived somewhere or you press the action button. So I was like, oh, I'll just like set it to the action button. And then when I set my phone face down, I just press the action button and then it'll go into do not disturb. And otherwise it'll do this other thing. Well, it turns out when you set your phone like actually face down on a table, pressing the action button doesn't do anything.
That's kind of weird.
It disables the action button. If I hold my phone 1 inch above the table and I press the action button, it goes into do not disturb. If I set it on the table and I press it, doesn't do anything.
That is really annoying. Because I mean, like I have mine. So first off, I want you to look at what just happened here. So I'm putting my phone on the table, and I'm going to hit the action button. And when I did it a moment ago, the flashlight came on, but for some reason just now it didn't. Look at that. I have
I think the edge of the, if you're off a little bit,
it's just a little bit.
So it just knows.
That's your key. You've got to surf your phone off the edge of the table and do it.
It's just a bunch of garbage.
No, I don't mean hover it. I mean, like, I've got the corner of the phone not on the table, and that, like, if you get it off enough,
well, now it's
works.
not.
It's not. It's very inconsistent.
But this is my problem, Daniel. It's very frustrating.
Yeah.
And I'm
I don't know how you're gonna survive.
Is there like a pocket detection? Like, let me turn that stuff off. Anyways, I've had an iPhone for like 4 years at this point, 3.5 years. I've been trying to just do this one thing for like 3.5 years, and I just can't do it.
Welcome back to the Camera Gear Podcast. I'm Daniel.
And I'm Lucas.
And we're here today to talk about the gear, software, and techniques we use to shoot photos and video.
That wasn't even my pre-show. But this is...
How many pre-shows do you have?
I only had one. This is your fault. This is close enough to camera related that we can just go into it.
Fine.
So I think I'm going to buy a medium camera cube and a extra small camera cube.
Why do you need both?
So I think that first I was very down on the extra small camera cube. I thought it was stupid whenever we talked about it a few weeks ago, even though it's like it's not a new thing. It's been around for a while, but attention was brought to it because of the Peak Design like Kickstarter thing.
Yeah, the outdoor bags.
Right, which we forgot to mention or we didn't know, but now I know. There was an interview with the CEO of Peak Design on the Petapixel podcast. And I started listening to that and I haven't finished it, but it exists. So
it does.
If that's interesting. Either way, I'm in the market for another camera bag.
You don't say.
As previously discussed.
Yes, as happens every week.
Because I need a medium camera bag in a way. Because like I have my 45 liter and it has a small thing, but then like I need something in the middle that's like 15 to 25 liters, I think. Need. And so like right now my Brevetti's that thing, but my Brevetti's gotten to the point where if you put camera gear in it and then you pick it up, all the camera gear just falls to the bottom of that pocket. And whenever you open it up, it's just like a pile of lenses and camera bodies.
It was kind of at that point that you got it.
It's terrible. I have fallen more and more out of love with that backpack. The only thing I like about it is that it is canary yellow.
Kind of. I feel like it's sort of like a dingy yellow now. Just from use.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. It's time for a new camera bag.
Or I think that the camera compartment will fit a medium Peak Design camera cube. Exactly.
The Brevetti bag.
The Brevetti, yep.
So you're thinking you could take out the terrible dividers they have and put in a camera cube.
Mm-hmm. I won't be like this medium doesn't have the side access thing, so I'll lose the ability to side access.
I don't use that a lot.
Not on that bag. I have not really used it. And so what I'm thinking is I could just reduce, reuse, and recycle, Daniel, and buy more Peak Design gear. That's the way I understand it. R D G.
That one doesn't roll off the tongue.
Whatever. So it's pretty close. I'm thinking I'm going to do it. I think I'm going to just buy one of those, and then I can use it in my other bag, and then I can use it in this bag, and I can extend the life of my Brevetti.
And extend your relationship with Peak Design.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All of that.
Not sponsored.
So you mentioned getting the extra small. What's that one for?
Okay, so I have like my Peak Design sling, but sometimes I prefer to use my Timbuktu bag, my little one.
The one that's like a purse?
Sure. I have an extra small Timbuktu bag. He's a little boy. And it's like the retro style. So
it's really like,
cool.
It's almost fanny pack size.
I love it. It's so good. The strap was short and I even extended the strap. I don't even have patches on that one. I should start putting patches on that one. I have patches on so many things. It's not important. Anyway, I have this like Gorilla camera snoop that I bought off Amazon a jillion years ago. That's been
I think it is called an ape case.
Wow, good job.
Yes.
Ape case. And that is like enough for a lens and a camera body. It's not very big. It mostly works. I still basically like it, but I have more confidence and like the Peak Design camera cubes more. The Velcro holds better. The dividers are more sturdy and it's a little more padded. I kind of like trust it to protect the gear a little more. I think the extra small would fit in my Timbuktu bag. Pretty stinking well.
Would it have a similar carrying capacity to what you do with that bag now?
Yeah, I think it would. I think that it would perfectly supplant my ape thing snoop.
Ah,
Yeah.
And you could own more Peak Design gear.
And then I would have one of every camera cube except the large one because I don't really see a point in that one.
Pretty impressive.
Oh, yeah. Then I'd have to get another Peak Design bag just to have somewhere to put the cubes.
Yeah, where are you going to store your spare cubes?
So
nice.
I think it's going to work. I think I can extend the use of those bags.
Yeah.
I like the idea of being able to use whatever bag I want as a camera bag.
Yeah, just throw a cube in there and you're good to go.
Exactly.
That's how you like to live your life.
Mm-hmm. I do feel like one of those everyday backpacks would be good for me one day.
You think so?
Yeah. I like the organization in them.
I don't know what I think of those because I feel like it's confusing when you open it up and like, I don't know, the form of those bags is weird to me.
Yeah, there's no real way to open up the bag and have access to the whole thing. You kind of have to arrange all of the pieces into some origami.
That's what it was.
Shoebox container.
Like, because I went with the Nomadic bag because I wanted that class of bag, like that 25 liter bag. But with camera gear, I want to be able to like pull one zipper and then see everything.
Yep.
And the bag I got is good for that. The Peak Design everyday bag is not.
No, but what I don't want is to have to open up the back of the bag to get to anything.
Yeah, because that's the problem I have is I don't have side access on mine.
Yeah, or top access. You basically have to take the bag off, set it on the ground face down, and then open up the entire bag to get to anything.
Yeah, well, it does have the top. There is a top compartment,
but
you can't access the camera cube from there.
Right, you have to have decided like this is what I want to do.
Yeah.
So that's for me a medium camera bag in that 15 to 25 liter range. I want to be able to get to what's in it, or at least the important things, while it's on me, and not have to like take it off. If I'm gonna have to like take it off, I might as well bring the 45 liter.
Just might as well.
Might as well. Okay. That was my pre-show topic.
Oh, well, I'm glad we finally got through
now
that.
for one of our legendary segues into a legendary lens.
You skipped something on this list.
Oh, shoot. Thank you. Please, Daniel.
Yeah, we have to cover this first. So far, we've been doing this podcast for 12 minutes. We've also been doing this podcast for 2 years, but this recording's been running for 12 minutes. And we've talked about Kickstarters and Peak Design, which are things we talk about quite a bit. And as it turns out, there are a lot of things that we talk about quite a bit on this show.
No, Dana, we never repeat ourselves.
I think we made a joke a couple weeks ago about how we needed a bingo card, or I said something about that. I don't remember exactly how it came up, but one of our listeners actually went and created a bingo card for this podcast and emailed it to us.
It's one of the best things I've seen in a while. I felt seen.
It's like dead on. All those things in that card we talk about all the time.
Yeah. Yep. So
we have more recurring bits than I thought we did. But
I have a list of them. You can't see them.
No, that's a shame.
Well, because you can't acknowledge the bits.
That's true. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Anyway, we're gonna put a link to the card in the show notes. I think we'll upload to the website or something, and you should definitely take a look at it.
And download it and play along or whatever.
Yeah. Yep.
Maybe you'll win a prize. Not from us. It's from somebody else.
Yeah. Some random other listener will send you a prize.
Yeah, that's what we're gonna lean on that.
All right.
Cool.
Now we can talk about your legendary lens.
Yeah. Neither of us can play Camera Gear Podcast Bingo because we have too much control.
Yeah.
And
we're picking the numbers.
We could be, we have to recuse ourselves.
Yeah. That's very true.
Yeah. I feel like I would win if I was playing Camera Gear Podcast Bingo.
Yeah. You just do some of your smooth segues and just cover all the topics.
Oh, what's that? I got 5 in a row here.
Funny how that works.
Cheater. Anyways. Okay. So I can't remember. I feel like we've covered this lens before, but I tried to dig back through all my notes, and I don't think we've actually covered it. I think we may have mentioned it once, but I do want to induct it into the list of legendary lenses. So we're going to talk about this one for a little bit.
Kind of a big deal.
You know what, Daniel? I was going to say that I once again forgot to name the segment, but we're going to actually go ahead and call it Kind of a Big Deal. So good job there. Thank you for naming the segment for me.
That's what I'm here for.
Yep, sure are. So this is the Carl Zeiss APO Sonar T1700 millimeter f4 lens.
1700 millimeter.
Yep. So this one's custom order. You basically have to go buy it from them. Yeah, there's not really a way to find out how much it costs because similar to, I think it was a Sigma lens that we talked about at one point, where there's these like lenses that some Arabic prince reaches out to like Carl Zeiss or Sigma and says, I want this lens. And then they build it for them. And no one knows how much it costs. And it's like 1 of 1 or 1 of 5 or special order only.
There's basically no price.
Yeah. And then it just exists until somebody finds out about it. And then there's 3 blog posts that make the rounds. And then that's the only information you can find out about that lens. And you're like, well, it exists. And there's a few of them. It must be legendary. And this particular lens is friggin' enormous. And I like if you recognize this photo, we've talked about it before. But do you see that little box on the end down here?
Yes, and no, I don't think I've seen the picture before.
That's a 6x6 medium format Hasselblad camera, which is looks lens. Like a Lego connected to like a Nalgene bottle.
Yeah, for sure. Is this weight correct?
Yeah, it weighs 564 pounds. That's not the price. That is the weight. And they'll make it for you whatever amount you need. But it is an f4 1700 millimeter lens. And it is a bit incredible. And you can pair it to your 6x6 Hasselblad medium format film camera and just go to town. I think that, what was it? It has like an Arabic like Star of Qatar emblem on it, and this is like basically all we know, that it is this made to order, enormous, pretty legendary Zeiss lens.
I mean, yeah, that's I've never seen one that heavy. I feel like if I was to get that lens, the only way I'd be able to carry it around would be to use that Edelkrone motorized tripod because then it would be weightless.
Exactly. Yeah, checks out. I wish that I could have found more information as far as like pricing or image quality or anything. I can't even find a photo off of this lens because it's that unique.
That's yeah. I mean, you can definitely see why that would be 1 of 1. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So, do you have any idea what it was created for? Because I know a lot of these things, it's like, there's at least one we talked about in the past where it's a really weird lens, but it was made for a purpose. And with something like this, you have to imagine there's a reason, right?
When it comes to Arabic princes and their really, really long telephoto zooms, don't ask questions.
Okay. It's very mysterious.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
I just get 1700 millimeters. I'm trying to fathom like how far that would be.
Pretty far.
Like you could probably take a picture of like something on the moon.
Yeah, it's basically a telescope.
Like up close.
I guess focal lengths basically do, like, you can multiply it essentially. So if I think about that 50 to 140, if I put that on APS-C, you multiply it by 1.5, so it's about 210, right? But still, 1700 millimeter lens is almost like that's almost 10 times.
I'm just saying, could you get a photo of somebody waving at you on the space station?
That is a good question.
Or is it not quite that much?
I feel like it's not quite that much, but I don't actually know.
Can you see the curvature of the Earth? I'm just saying, at some point, when not doing astrophotography and having an extremely long telephoto, like just the diffraction of light through the air would become a problem.
Yeah. Like
you would not be able to resolve past a certain distance unless it was like really clear.
I mean, it's a 500-pound lens, so maybe it is that clear, but
no, not the air, Daniel.
Oh, I see what you mean. I don't know. I feel like instead of getting this lens and carrying it around, I would just, move closer to whatever I wanted to take a picture of. Crazy.
Maybe you just can't move closer.
Maybe not.
Maybe this person can't leave their palace.
that could be, like, for legal reasons or otherwise.
Mm-hmm. Who knows?
Yeah, who knows?
Where are they building that wall? I know this whole thing was made in 2006, so, like, not connected. But where are they building that, like, wall city thing?
Oh, when you said that wall, I was like, Lucas, this is not a political show.
No, like it's in like Saudi Arabia.
I think it is Saudi Arabia.
Yeah,
where it's not Dubai, but
they're building like a giant city that's
it's like a quarter mile long. No, it was like, wasn't it like 50 miles long?
It's like super duper long.
Yeah, and the side of it's like a mirror. Man, we are off topic here.
Yep, Saudi Arabia is building the line, is what it's called. How long will it take to build the line? 2030. It is 2.4 kilometers long.
Okay, that is not 55 miles. I was a little off on that.
It's 1.5 miles.
Yeah.
But you could put this lens on one side and take a picture of the other side.
Yeah, almost certainly.
Imagine the compression. The background would be nothing.
Yeah.
Especially at f4. I mean, that person's a mile away, and I can't get them in focus because the depth of field is still razor thin. Anyways, so that's, you can just play the outro for that segment, and we're going to talk about Fuji.
on that topic, now we'll talk about the Fuji event.
Yeah, well, I listened back to our episode where we did all the predictions. And
how'd that go for us?
It's went really well.
Yeah, I think I remember one part where you said the M5 is definitely not coming this year. It's definitely a 2025 camera.
I'm not.
Do you remember that?
Yeah, I remember that, Daniel. That's exactly what I said. Was I wrong? Who knows?
The listeners know, and now we also know.
Do we? Okay, so Fuji had their event, and it feels like 2 weeks in a row talking about Fuji. Like, what is this show? We're gonna do it, Daniel.
Yeah,
we got to do it.
I think they've come to expect it by now. I think we're probably okay.
This is very important to me.
Yeah.
And as we both
it's probably
know,
the biggest event of your year.
Yes. Well,
maybe not.
I mean, if we're going to go down that road, let's just go ahead and talk about it. They announced the 16-55 Mark II, and they didn't just show like a 2D diagram of it and say, we're going to be coming out with this. They actually came out with it.
I mean, it's shipping in November, I think, right?
I thought it was December. It was like the first week of December.
Somewhere around there. But I mean, it's like imminent. It's here.
It's like right there. I forgot to get the dimension of that to compare it to the Sigma 18-55 1.4.
Oh, that's an interesting question. It was pretty much what the rumors said it was going to be.
I said 1.4, I meant 2.8.
Yeah. It's a 16-55, 2.8. It was pretty much what those rumors said it was going to be. So it's a 72 millimeter filtered thread, which is down from the 77 in the previous one. And overall, the lens is both lighter and smaller than the previous one. I think they said it was substantial. It was like 37% smaller.
It's so much smaller. It's 30%. I think they said like 33% less volume, but it's almost it goes from like 1 point something pounds to like 0.7 pounds.
Yeah.
It's almost like a half a pound smaller.
I remember
half a pound lighter.
When I was getting into Fuji, obviously, first thing you think about is what is your standard zoom going to be? And one of the things that turned me off about the 16-55 Mark I was that it was so heavy because it's a metal lens and it weighed well over a pound, and I just didn't want that on my camera all the time. So I went with the 17-70 instead, and I've regretted it every day since.
As you should.
But this one seems like it really solves that problem by being that much smaller.
Yeah, so the current 16-55 is 655 grams. And I think I was mixing it up with the inches. It's a half an inch shorter, or almost a full inch shorter.
Okay.
Something like that. But it's 600. The old one was 655 grams. The new one is 410 grams.
Yeah. It did take it over that pound mark, though, where the new one is less than a pound and the old one was more than a pound.
Yeah. I mean, that's pretty good. It is 3.7 inches long.
Okay.
Which is like under 4 inches is pretty good. If you're comparing it to, as I cannot find a single page in my notes here, I think that the Sigma is like 3.1 inches, maybe.
I mean, I would bet it's still longer than that because that Sigma 18-50 is a tiny lens. And I know the filter thread is bigger because the Sigma, I think the Sigma is even smaller than 67. I think it's like a 62, maybe.
It's 55, actually.
55,
the Sigma is quite small. Okay,
yeah.
It's 3 inches long.
Okay.
So it's like still an inch longer than the Sigma, but it's substantially shorter than the 17-70.
Yeah.
And then the Sigma, like obviously 55 versus 72, it's a lot smaller. Yeah. This is it seems like the same size as maybe like the old 56 or the 16 millimeter f4. I said f4. I meant 1.4.
Yeah. What else did they change?
I'm going to tell you, Daniel, as soon as I finish looking up dimensions of lenses. I wrote down other lens dimensions, the ones that matter, but now I will care about other dimensions, and so does everybody else, so they're all going to wait. Wow, the 16 1.4 is only 2.87 inches long. Wow, that's way shorter than I thought.
Yeah. Sure.
Okay, well, this one's Pinocchio. Anyways, way smaller. It doesn't seem like it extends whenever you zoom.
Oh, that's good.
I was trying to like find the zoom extension because I was just anticipating that it does, because most lenses like that do extend. I can't find any photos or dimensional information that imply that it extends. So cool.
It'd be good if it didn't for like gimbal use and stuff.
Yeah, everything else is exactly as we thought it was going to be. It's like, oh, it's way smaller. It's like weather sealed. It has a declicked aperture.
Well, it has a declickable aperture, which is even cooler.
Even cooler. So all the things, and like it has the new linear motors because it's smaller and the lenses are lighter. It's just going to be way faster at autofocusing. We don't have any good information on like how parafocal is it, how much focus breathing it has, but Fuji did seem to imply that both of those are extremely well controlled.
Yeah, they made it sound like they wanted it to be useful for video, so they maybe put more effort into that than they would have for a photo only lens.
One of the things that drives me crazy about the 17-70 is whenever you zoom, it defocuses until you stop zooming.
Yeah, I don't know what the deal is with that, but it is annoying.
Yep. So like it's like you can't really zoom while recording. You can't like crash zoom or anything on the 17-70.
I mean, you can.
That's true. You can. No one's going to stop you. Do you. Seriously, I'm going to sell both my lenses. I can buy this lens, Daniel. I'm so pumped about it. They made a point to talk about the dispersion element, like the low dispersion elements. Whenever they came out with the previous 16-55, when it came out, it was like, this thing is going to be as good. We're trying to make this as good as having prime, like shooting on a prime. And like that seems like that's their goal here. And from the very few like first impression videos, because they gave it to like just a handful of people, it seems like it's really, really good. The low dispersion elements are to produce chromatic aberration, which like, yeah, you're going to get that on a zoom, even if it's the most perfect zoom. But they added what they're calling a super ED element, which I hadn't necessarily seen in a lens spec before. And I was like, so I know what like a low dispersion element is, like for reducing the splitting of the light for chromatic aberration. Well, it's a super ED element, and that's a super extra low dispersion.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so
easy. Just add one of those in there.
Yep,
perfect.
Super. I don't know. So there's like 3 of these elements in there that I guess are doing stuff, and it's very exciting, Daniel.
Yeah. I mean, we could say basically they changed the optical formula, and that seems like it should be a better lens. Did you mention that it has 11 aperture blades?
Oh, no, they were really excited about that. They think that it's going to have less onion ringing and more round bokeh.
Nice.
Yeah.
I think the only thing, so I'm kind of in the same boat as you, where, I currently have the Sigma 18-50 and the Tamron 17-70. This lens is probably going to look better than both of them. It has the aperture ring, has the declickable aperture. I mean, this seems like a much better lens. I'd be inclined to get this too. And my only holdup is, not knowing if Fuji's a long-term system from you or not. But what does give me pause is the price, because this is a pretty expensive lens.
Expensive for Fuji. Like if this was
okay, for sure. Yeah.
If this was a Sigma lens and it was a standard zoom and it was $1,200, we'd be like, whoa, look at this deal. But because it's Fuji and because it's APS-C and it's $1,200, it's like, kind of expensive.
Yeah. I mean, mostly for me, it's because it's APS-C. Like, yeah, full frame 24-70, this would be a fantastic price. But we're used to Fuji lenses being cheaper. I mean, have you ever paid $1,200 for a Fuji lens?
I don't think I've ever bought it. No, wait.
You haven't bought any lenses, period, that cost that much.
I'm trying to think if I've ever bought any lenses new.
That's true, too.
That were Fuji. Like, I've never bought a new Fuji lens, other than the one that came with my XT3.
Mm-hmm.
I've bought a new Sigma lens and a new Tamron lens.
Yep.
I bought 2 new Sigma lenses. I've had so many lenses, Daniel, but I think all of my Fuji lenses I've purchased used.
The closest I've come is whenever I had a Canon EOS R, I bought an EF mount Tamron 24-70 f2.8, and that lens I bought new, and I think it was $1,100. So pretty expensive. I know.
Well, we're just a bunch of cheapskates, aren't we?
For all the people listening to this that shoot full frame, they're like, "Oh my gosh!" Like, because some of those lenses can be $2,000, $2,500.
It's a real investment.
But we buy a lot of used lenses, and that's the other downside is with this being a new lens, there's not going to be any used ones. So if you want this, you're going to have to pay that full price.
I mean, I'm just gonna sell my lenses and offset the cost.
Yeah.
I mean, I still have to sell my X-T3 and I'll sell that too.
Yeah.
Sell a kidney. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, you could sell both of the existing standard zooms and basically fund this one.
Yeah, that's my thought. Depending upon if I can get a decent price for them.
Yeah. I don't know if anybody wants to buy that 17-70.
Maybe everybody wants to buy it. I don't know, Daniel.
Maybe one of our listeners wants to buy it.
No, they don't want to buy it.
You don't think so?
No, they know I drop all of my lenses.
We don't actually talk very nice about that lens anyway. But
true.
Very exciting announcement, though.
Yeah, particularly for me. No one else really cares. I care. I care so bad. I'm going to put that lens on my XH2S, and then I'm going to shoot on my X-T5 with only primes, as I already do exclusively. Even though this one is going to resolve to 40 megapixels, whereas
good point. Most of your primes don't.
None of my other lenses do.
I bet the 50-140 does.
I feel like I need that 33 1.4 lens.
Yeah, what you need is another prime in that in that range.
Well, it would complement my 27 millimeter a lot. No, I don't have 27. My 23 millimeter. See, Daniel, I have 23 and I have 56. I have nothing in between.
No, what are you gonna do?
Well, I could get the 33, and then I get the zoom, and then I would have 4 primes and a zoom all in the same focal range.
You would love it. You're never gonna leave Fuji.
It really feels that way.
Yeah, you're just descending further and further into it.
I'm locked in. I'm just like, take me or whatever. Trust fall into Fuji's arms.
Man, if we were doing funny episode names, that would be the name for sure. Trust fall into Fuji's arms.
Yep.
All right, what else are they talking about?
Okay, so they obviously released a new camera that is less important than the amount of time we're going to talk about it.
I don't know if I agree with that. I think this is a pretty important camera for them.
Okay, so did you learn everything about it?
I mean, I don't know if I'd say everything.
All right, Daniel. Looking at serious question. Is this the perfect camera?
That's a pretty bold statement. You're gonna have to defend that a little bit. I'm inclined to say no, but I'm curious.
I mean, probably not.
But you have to ask, right?
Mm-hmm. Man,
anytime you see a camera, is this the perfect camera?
I was cruising around about this camera on Threads, as one does, and yeah, I was reading through comments of someone who posted about it, posted a video that I watched, and someone was like, "Is this full frame?" I'm like, where have you been? So maybe we should start there. Not full frame.
Not full frame. Yeah, still APS-C.
Yep. I think this is in a really interesting segment of the market. I would think that, so the M5 is their smallest camera. This is Fuji's smallest APS-C camera. Mm-hmm. Apparently it's smaller than the XE10, XE1, XE4. What was the last
XE4 is the most recent one.
Yeah, smaller than the XE4. You look at it, is it really smaller? I don't know. But supposedly it's smaller than that. It's extremely light. It's just a tiniest camera.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't have a viewfinder.
Yeah, that's probably the biggest glaring thing that's missing.
Daniel, have you seen those little viewfinders that you can just slide into the hot shoe? And it's just like a little...
Like a little piece of glass?
Like a little scope?
No, I haven't seen that.
Daniel, you put like a red dot on this thing.
Oh, yeah.
It'd be bigger than the camera. That'd be super cool. Anyways, you can buy these little scope things. You slide it on there, so you, I guess, have a fake glass viewfinder. Anyway, but that's it. Super tiny, back screen only, flippy screen style, flippy screen, not tilt screen, vlog camera.
Yep. And
it's very reminiscent of your ZV-E10s and your Lumix S9s.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It feels like I don't want to say more casual, but I mean, you can definitely tell it's a lower end camera by them leaving off the EVF, and it has fewer dials than some of Fuji's other stuff, and it's so small. I mean, it just it's fitting into that lower bracket, but it is also priced cheaper than any other camera they have.
It is optimized for size, but in classic Fuji fashion, they took an existing formula and they applied it to just a different form factor. Mm-hmm. It's like Fuji's move. I liked it a little more when that was their move and they only had one lineup. With the current series of X-Trans 5 type cameras, we have the X Processor 5 and then we have the X-Trans 5. And there's two versions of that X-Trans 5 sensor. One is that 26 megapixel stacked that's in the XH2S. Then there's the 40 megapixel version that's in the XH2 and the XT5. And then they have another version in the XT50. And then they have the old X-Trans 4 sensor paired with the X processor 5. So old sensor, new processor, which is like a Canon R6 move, R6 Mark II, whatever, doesn't matter. They pair those together and then they put that in the XS20 and now the XM5.
Yeah.
So they have
it's
three
a 20,
different
26 megapixel non-stacked sensor.
Exactly. So the same sensor that's in the X100V, the XT4, the XT3, the X Pro 4, the XT30 Mark II, the XT30.
All of the cameras from that generation had that.
I can keep going, Daniel. Can I keep going? XE4?
Doesn't seem like you can.
Anyways, so it's that sensor. Well proven, good sensor. I've taken so many good pictures with my XT3. Very good sensor. But new processor. So like all the new autofocus stuff, you get like airplane detection and boat detection and all that jazz. So classic Fuji of, okay, what does the XS20 do? This camera can basically do all the XS20 stuff, which is a lot of stuff.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive. And, and something that at this price point in like a lower end camera, I mean, on the video side, it can do 6.2K open gate recording at like 10-bit resolution. Like it's a really unusual spec.
Yeah. So it's like, it is that kind of like video photo hybrid, probably more video than photo, no viewfinder, tiny camera category, Lumix S9, ZVE10. This is $200. No, it's $300 cheaper than a ZVE10, and this
is $800.
And it is $700 cheaper than a Lumix S9.
Yeah, I mean it's basically half the price of the S9.
But I was gonna say both those sensors not half the size. Anyways, half the price. Obviously, one's full frame. Like this does everything that those cameras do, basically, and does more in some cases. So like. It's like like the few cameras in this like very very niche category. I mean, did Fuji like blow everybody out of the water, Daniel?
I don't know if I would say this is a niche category. I mean, I do think you said more video than photo.
I say niche in that like there isn't a Canon or a Nikon version of this camera.
Okay.
There is a Sony, there's a Panasonic, there's a Fuji. That's about it.
But I mean, I feel like. You said it's more video than photo. I think it's pretty 50-50.
Sure.
It doesn't have IBIS, which hurts it a little bit on the video side. And I mean, for photos, it's totally fine as long as you're okay with not having an EVF. And I just think at the price point and with it being really small and with Fuji lenses being cheaper, than like a full frame Panasonic lens, I think all that together make it pretty compelling for somebody who wants some of the Fuji benefits of like the retro styling and film simulations and all that, but, doesn't have $1,500 to spend. I think it makes a lot of sense for that.
It does make a lot of sense for that. I was wondering, like, other than the 27 millimeter 2.8 that no one can buy because you can't find it anywhere, did you ever sell that one?
I did sell it.
Okay.
Yep.
Other than that lens, there aren't any other pancake lenses for Fuji, really. This one, you can buy it with a kit lens, but it's like one of the XC type kit lens.
Oh, yeah.
It's like the 15 to 55 or 15 to 50 millimeter, and it's like a 3-point something to 6-point something.
I feel like I'd skip that lens unless you're really on a budget.
It's like $100 ad. They're basically just giving it away.
Well, that's not bad then.
Yeah, and so it's like $900 with a lens, which is still.
Yeah. I mean, I just feel like I'd rather have either like the 23 1.4.
Sure.
If you're really into a prime, or the Sigma 18 to 50.
Well, I think that they're trying to appeal for vlogging on this. So having a lens that starts at 15 millimeters is appealing. Fuji doesn't really make too many wide angle zooms that are achievable. The 10 to 20 f4 is pretty good, little slow, but it also is like, it's not. I say it's pretty good. It's like okay. I returned that lens because of just it's not very sharp. It's kind of just a little soft throughout the range. It's a little slow.
Yeah. And you weren't really happy with that. You got the 16 and liked that a lot more.
Yeah, the 16 is amazing. One of my favorite lenses.
I
So
guess
you keep buying that lens every time I lose it. But then they have like the 8 to 16, which is enormous and like $2,000.
Yeah. I guess that 15, APS-C crop on the wide end, that 15 is about a 24. So pretty wide. I wouldn't call it like an ultra wide lens or anything, but not bad.
Tamron makes an 11 to 20 2.8.
And it's maybe, what is that, like $700, $800 lens?
It's $700.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's adding a lot to the cost of the camera, but if you're in vlogging, maybe that would be the right choice.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, like the one that it comes with, fine. Like, I don't think you're going to find any. You can find some used stuff in the $500 to $600 range, but like, I think that it's like $600, $300 for maybe it's $600 for the new 16 to 50. Was it 2.8 to f4, 2.8 to 5.6?
Yeah, that's like the new better kit lens.
Yeah, that's the new one, and I think that would be a pretty good pairing with this.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah, that Tamron is like it's like 3.4 inches long. It's like a 67 millimeter filter thread, so it's like about the size of the 16. It's not super huge. It's kind of standard Fuji. Mm-hmm. Anyway, Danny, we've been talking about how small this thing is, but I don't think that's helpful for people. I think we need to like really try to narrow down how small this camera is. And so
it is smaller than a bread box.
Yeah, so I'm going to introduce you into the segment called Is It Smaller Than a Bread Box? Which harkens back to like episode, I don't know, like 20, where I was trying to, there was like, is this bigger or smaller than a can of Marzano tomatoes? And you're like, Lucas, what are we doing? I don't remember what it was. I don't have anything as clever as that because I couldn't think of anything that was camera size to compare this to except for a deck of cards. Is it bigger or smaller than a deck of cards, Daniel?
It's bigger than that.
You are correct. It is bigger than a deck of cards. Mm-hmm. Is it bigger or smaller than a Panasonic Lumix S9?
I'm going to say it's smaller, mostly because of sensor size.
It is smaller.
Nice.
Good job. Yep. Is it bigger or smaller than a Panasonic Lumix GX85?
Oh, now that's a harder one. I think it's bigger than that.
It is smaller.
It's smaller than the GX85.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that camera did have the worst EVF I've ever seen. So I guess that's maybe one thing that would have made it bigger.
Is it bigger or smaller than a Sony ZV-E10?
I'm betting it's about the same size as that.
It is close, but it is smaller. ZV-E10, also smaller than a Panasonic Lumix GX85.
Huh.
Turns out.
Who knew?
Very small. Bigger or smaller than a Ricoh GR3?
You're making these harder. Why aren't you asking me if it's like smaller than, an R5 Mark II or something? Come on. So are we talking, you were talking body only?
Yeah, body only. Obviously, like the GR3 has a built-in lens. The lens is going to be longer. But like if you put a lens, like a 27 millimeter lens on this thing, it's probably like the Fuji's going to be a little bigger from a lens distance perspective. So ignore the lens.
I think I'm going to say it is smaller than the GR3.
It is not smaller than the GR3. It is 0.1 inches longer, and then 0.2 inches taller than a GR3. It is basically the size of a GR3.
Pretty close. Until you add a lens.
It's definitely way smaller than an X100-6.
Yeah, which is that's pretty meaningful, I think, because I think we all kind of viewed the X100-6 as being, a pretty small Fuji camera, and this is noticeably smaller than that.
Yeah, in like actuality, the X100-6 is not very small. And I'm going to look them up right now.
I mean, it is a 40 megapixel camera, so maybe we should cut it a little slack.
Yeah, it's the X100-6 is 5 inches long and 2.95 inches tall.
Okay.
So and then it's 2.7 wide. So like it's 5 inches by 3 inches effectively. And I know that all of our non-US listeners are like, I don't know what that means. An inch is about the size of your left foot. So the M5 is 4.5, like 4.4 inches long. So it's like a little more than a half an inch shorter in width or whatever. And then it's 2.6 inches tall. So it's like
point
a half an inch shorter.
Yeah. I mean, you would notice that if you had it in your pocket or something.
Mm-hmm. But basically what that means is that the Lumix S9 and the X100-6 are basically the same size. Mm-hmm. But compared to this camera, the X-M5, those cameras are enormous. Enormous. I forgot to ask you one more thing. I think I already gave it away. Is it thinner or thicker than a 27 millimeter 2.8?
I think, I used to own that lens, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think I would say it's thicker, but only by a little bit?
I think it's thinner.
Wow. Pretty good.
But I can't really tell by these dimensions. It says 23 by 61.2 millimeters. I don't know what those dimensions are.
Yeah, I don't either.
Actually, you know what? I think it's 0.9 inches. And then this is 1.5. So it's about a half an inch thicker than the 27 millimeter.
Okay.
So overall, mega tiny, Daniel.
Yeah, pretty small.
Mega tiny.
Mega tiny.
It was the smallest thing on my list. Okay, let me close my super secret podcast notes and go back into my regular podcast notes. Okay, super small. I wish I had more things to compare it to, but I feel like you still can't. Maybe you can put it in like a jacket pocket. I don't think you're gonna put it in like a jean pocket.
Depends on how tight your jeans are. If you've got those tight podcasting pants, definitely not putting this in there.
Yeah, that's a good point. Okay, anyways, let's talk about this thing and like features and that sort of stuff. Yeah. So I'm just gonna like run down and then maybe have a few questions and we can like stop on things that are important. The obviously comes in silver and black because it's a Fuji.
Although I think next year they're gonna come out with an all black one. If you're into it,
but it has it now, right? There's a black and then there's a silver.
I don't think the black one is out right now.
I don't believe you because I can come over here and I can say X-M5 B and H, except for I'm going to do a caret instead of an H, but it's still going to get it. And I can click, yep, they got a black one right there. Coming soon. It's right there.
Well,
see? Look at it.
I know it's coming, but it's not here.
Well, none of them are here, Daniel. None of them ship until November. Anyway, maybe they're going to come out with like a charcoal one or something. It's just classic silver. It's not like the dark silver that you get in like the XT50 or whatever.
It has a nice retro look, though.
It doesn't come in pink. Really unfortunate.
That's a downside for sure.
Yeah, super downside. I mean, like Fuji's been doing this retro thing for a while. I'm like, they get the film simulations and all that sort of stuff. And I know that doing a lot of SKUs is hard. But I feel like Nikon and Panasonic have figured it out.
Yeah, they've got the colors.
Like, why can't I get this in forest green?
I don't know.
It would be sick.
It really would.
Mm-hmm. What is it? Sick as a type rover?
No.
type rover
we're not
walker
doing that.
over.
No, we're not doing that again. No. Don't even start.
Sharks with laser beams.
So moving on. What kind of battery is this thing use?
Yeah, okay, so unfortunately, it is the old battery. I guess they did it for size, but I feel like that's a cop-out. Give me a slightly bigger grip. Put the new battery in there. Don't put the 126S in there.
Yeah. I mean, the only benefit is if you have a bunch of those 126Ss, then now you can use them. But yeah, this battery doesn't last very long.
Daniel, I have like 12 of those batteries, and I still don't want it in this thing.
Yeah. You need to like make a bandolier so you can just carry all of them around with you.
Ugh.
Have it across your chest.
It would be very dangerous. It'd catch on fire. So whenever you open up that battery door and you're putting in your MPS 126S, that's only going to be probably rated for like 350 shots because that battery is like only mediocre, and they've made much better batteries since then. That battery's old, Daniel. That battery's been in their cameras since like the XT2.
Yeah, it sure has.
Ridiculous. Anyways, you're going to find in that slot the SD card.
Yep. Yeah, that's a pretty common thing on small cameras.
Yeah, sure. I mean, like, where else are you going to put it? Mm-hmm. You're going to put it there on the battery door because you know what's right next to the battery door? The tripod screw.
Oh, yeah, perfect. That way you can't change your SD card or your battery while you have it on a tripod.
Exactly.
Love that.
Who would want to do that? Ugh. I mean, like, obviously, like, where else are you going to mount it? Because, like,
it's a very small camera.
It's a very small camera.
It's just frustrating, though.
A little frustrating. All right. It's UHS 1 for the card slot, not UHS 2. That was kind of a bummer.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of is, especially given that you have some pretty strong video features since it's kind of the same as the XS20. And so you can make some pretty big files with this thing.
Right. It's not cutting. I was going to say it's not cutting any of the record. You're getting all the record modes. But so like if you're shooting on like an XT4 or something, same sensor, you can shoot like all intra 400 megabit per second onto the UHS 2 card slots. Mm-hmm. This one's going to cut you off at like 200 megabit per second, I think.
Yeah.
I know that on the XH2, XH2S, if you're shooting like open gate 6K, like 30 frames per second, usually I'm shooting that like 320. Yeah. Just to kind of get enough data into that package. To me, it seems like this one's going to cut it off. I don't know if the 6K is 320 or in like the 4K caps at 200, but from what I was looking at, it seemed like you're not going to get like 400 all-eye or whatever. Yeah. You're just going to be limited by the speed of the card.
So that's a limitation. I guess if you wanted to get some like super high bit rate, you'd have to record externally.
I mean, and it's got a micro HDMI port on there, so you could do it.
I mean, Blackmagic has already released an update for the Video Assist that lets you do Blackmagic RAW from this thing.
Boo, yeah.
So just do that.
The Blackmagic Video Assist is bigger.
Yeah, it's bigger than the camera.
Get the camera. You would mount the camera to the monitor instead of the monitor to the camera. Anyway, they added some lower codecs though, which is interesting to like go the other way. Oh. Normally, every Fuji camera that I've owned, which is every single Fuji camera ever made, that's not true. 50 megabit per second is the minimum, and this one they added a 25 and an 8. So if you want
8,
yeah, wow. Like I mean, classic Sony cameras were all 25 megabit per second, like 8-bit, whatever, just garbage footage. If you're not going to do any color grading and you're looking for a really light workflow that's maybe 1080p or something, it's like one of the modes on this camera is it can shoot vertical, but not just like I rotated the camera and I'm shooting vertical. It's like you have holding the camera horizontal and it crops in to a 9 by 16
so you
vertical
can still
frame.
Hold it, like ergonomically, hold it landscape, but you're shooting a vertical.
Or like mount it onto a Gorilla Pod and then not have to remount it in order to do your vertical stuff. You can just like, if you have a really fast workflow, or as somebody said in some marketing material that Fuji shared on Twitter, if you're going to share with family and friends on frame.io and you need a really quick workflow for that. Using camera to cloud. And you're going to shoot, you could shoot vertical and horizontal.
Yeah, because every time I share with family and friends, I want them to be able to make comments at every timestamp of the video and tell me what I did wrong. Yep.
Anyways,
honestly, I think it's a cool feature.
It's a cool feature. If you're shooting in that kind of resolution, I could see like 25 megabits per second being a totally reasonable data rate for that type of shot.
For sure.
So,
I think so too.
Cool. They added the film simulation dial mode thing, whatever. Like, the XT50 had a physical
dial for film simulations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that with all of its compromises is here. You can't set, it has like C1 through C3 on the film simulation dial thing. You can set those to like, I don't know, Acros with the yellow color filter thing, but you can't set it to like, this is my film recipe for Porta 400.
That still feels like a miss.
Still feels like a miss. They could have corrected it here, Daniel. Corrected, made it different.
Yep.
I think they want people to just use the simulations as is. Mm-hmm. But I don't know. I mean, like they support them too. You can set it to like the wheel version so that you can like scroll through them on your camera.
Sure.
And then you could set up like all your C1 through C7s as your different film simulation modes. So like you could have it set to, here's all the standard ones, and then when I put it into this one, then I use the thumb wheel to scroll through all of my custom ones. And you could probably like figure it out like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
For good or for bad, it's a PSAM dial on this one.
Yeah, a little different, but I mean, we debated on this show before about like, is that better or worse? And I mean, thinking about what this camera's for, where it's maybe like a more entry level camera, I still kind of go back and forth about it. I mean, I think the retro command dial thing is pretty easy to use, but PSAM may still be simpler.
I am a huge fan of the way that Fuji implemented the PSAM on the XH2 and the XH2S, where it was like, here's a few modes, and then here's 7 custom modes. And I have like those set to all kinds of different stuff. I have 2 of them set to film simulations in an aperture priority mode, where it's like, here's my like Ektachrome film like recipe, and I have it set to like C2 or whatever. I like the way that that's implemented. I'm a little confused on this camera with the film simulation dial, and then having C1 through C3 on a PSAM.
Yeah, like what happens if you put both of them on C1, or like does the film simulation dial overwrite the custom mode or vice versa? That's kind of weird. Yeah,
it's like, is it going to lock you out of being able to set a film simulation to a custom mode, which seems like that would be a detractor. Yeah. So I'm curious like how that shakes out on this camera.
Or is it like the most recent thing you selected is what it uses?
I would think that it's going to by default use the one that it's set on the main dial.
Yeah.
Unless you set it to like C to being just done in software.
Yeah. So that is a little confusing.
Yeah. So maybe some questions on how this thing actually operates. I appreciate that Fuji has the variation in their camera line. I think for this tiny little camera that's like vlog mode, easy to use, I mean, like you're going to want it to be a PSAM type configuration because you want to be able to set it in full auto, put it in vlog mode,
Yep.
and then press the make the background blurry button and then let it do its own aperture priority automation stuff.
For sure. And plus, you can get by with fewer dials and still have a reasonable way to control the camera. And for a smaller camera, you're probably going to want fewer dials.
Right. I mean, it doesn't have any less dials. Like it's got a film simulation, it's got a knob on the top, and it has the PSAM. Like that's all the same. Like that's as many dials as are on an X-T5.
Yeah,
and
I guess that's true.
So it's like they're not really saving on like the amount of manual control. It's just different. It drives me crazy when I'm like cruising social network, which I should probably just stop doing. And no, I'm not going to stop, Daniel. You can't make me.
Who calls it social network?
I do. I'm 100 years old. And people are like, man, why do they do this? Like, why is Fuji going away from the, like, all the cool dials with the shutter speed? This way better design. And it's like, people forget that other cameras exist every time a new camera comes out.
That's exactly right.
Sometimes I think camera companies forget other cameras exist when new cameras come
It
out.
kind of feels that way, doesn't
Like,
it?
here's our new $1,200 camera, and we're going to give it all the sick new features and blah, blah. And it's like, you also have all those other cameras. Don't forget about those.
Yeah, I do like that you have a choice with Fuji where you can get the retro command dials if you want, or you can go PSAM.
Yeah, I think that was the right call here. So as far as like record modes and what this thing can do for video, it has a specific vlog mode. Didn't the XCS20 have a vlog mode also?
That was so long ago. I still know.
Well, yeah, I mean this is the only camera that Fuji makes now.
That's true.
So
yeah.
but like when you flip it into vlog mode, it adds a bunch of like buttons around the screen that are like easy to touch or whatever.
Well, and I heard somebody talking about that, and maybe it was in Petapixel's review. And they thought that Fuji did a good job with that feature because they said on some other cameras, when you put it in vlog mode, it's like it simplifies everything and kind of dumbs it down. And they felt like the Fuji thing makes the commands easier to access because like the whole point is that you can flip the screen around so that you can see it from the front, but you can still tap on the, on the screen to control it. But they felt like Fuji still gave you all the power of the commands, but just made them easier to access.
Yeah, and they added things like product priority mode where it's going to focus on the thing that's closest to the lens regardless. So you can like hold something up and it'll focus on that, which is something that I never necessarily had before. And like the make the background blurry, but not have to think about what aperture means type mode. So like they added some of that stuff, but it's cool to have I mounted it, I flipped the screen around and I just need to like have easy access to all of the like self-recording features. It kind of works.
Yeah.
So they added that, flips around, talked about PSAM. What else are we missing here, Daniel? The sides, no danglies. They have
danglies.
They have built-in straps for the camera strap.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I mean, nice feature. Not going to complain.
They added the that's where I was going to talk about the record modes. They added the electronic image stabilization. That's something that we haven't really seen in too many Fuji cameras.
Okay.
Like there's some like you can use EIS now on like your X-T5 or your but like those have IBIS and the EIS is on top of that and it's like a 1.1 crop. This one's like a 1.2 something crop, but you can use it to get stabilization without actually using IBIS. Having like,
I'm a little skeptical that it works well, but
like having shot with an X-T5, an X-T3 for video without IBIS for a while, like not having stabilization for doing any sort of like vloggy stuff can be pretty limiting. And for something this small, like it's just going to be jittery if you don't.
It's going to bounce around a lot.
It is. It really is. And like the number of lenses that Fuji has with that optical stabilization built in, like the 18 to 55 old kit lens was perfect for that. That had a very decent stabilization in it. I don't remember if the new 16 to 50 has stabilization.
For some reason, I don't think it does.
I think they took it out.
Yeah.
So it's like you're kind of, because they've been putting IBIS in everything. All the lenses that Fuji's making, they've been moving away from putting optical stabilization in them. And so like even the new 16 to 55 isn't going to have.
Going to have to get that 17 to 70.
I mean, that's definitely bigger than this camera.
The only downside though is, if you use this EIS, if it's a 1.2 crop, that's pretty rough for vlogging.
Yeah, it is, especially with you're already on a crop sensor. And so like if
Yeah.
you're trying to get something in the like full frame equivalent of 20 to 24 millimeter range, boy, that's going to be tough.
You're going to need that Tamron 11.
Well, yeah, there's not too many wide angle zooms on Fuji to use. I mean, it's the 10 to 24, the 11 to 20, the 8 to 16, the 16 mil, the 18 mil, the other 18 mil,
the third 18
the 15 to 45 or whatever it is.
Yeah.
I think I've listed all of them.
Yep. I think, pretty limiting though.
Yeah, so it's like just not too many. So
yeah. One thing I thought was really cool about this camera is the microphone setup.
Oh yeah, we should talk about that.
Yeah, so they, most cameras have a mic, but this one I think has three.
Mm-hmm.
And what's cool about it is you can select where you want it to pull audio from. So I think you can do front only, front and back, where it like rejects sound from the sides, omnidirectional, and then I don't know if you can do back only. Maybe you can.
Yeah, you can.
So it's kind of, and I think people said in the reviews, it's not perfect. Like if you put it on front and back only, it's not like you won't hear anything off to the sides, but I think it does help. And that's a pretty cool feature for a vlog type use case. Yeah.
And we should say maybe first impressions. We don't have final firmware on these cameras.
That's true.
Yet. They're just, it's final hardware and that's it. Mm-hmm. But it seems like the on-camera audio is pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
I think you're still going to have a better experience with something like a ZV-E10 and the little tiny dead cat thing that slides on.
Yeah.
I think that's going to give you better audio just kind of generally. But it does seem like what Fuji's done here is probably pretty good. Mm-hmm. And those three mics are on top. So maybe like you could get something to slide into the hot shoe to kind of cover it.
Yeah.
In like a little toupee fashion.
Oh, I like that idea.
A little toupee in your camera. Yep.
And if you don't want to do that, it does have a mic jack. Kind of it seemed like it was kind of in the position of where the EVF would be if it had an EVF. So if you wanted to add like the little Rode mic or like the Deity D4 or something, you could put it in the hot shoe and then just plug it in right there.
Yeah, the XT30 Mark II and the XT, I think even the XT50, maybe not. They got rid of the headphone jack and they had used like you could say USB-C to headphone for monitoring audio. They like realized that they need to have a headphone jack in this thing and they shipped with one. This is the smallest camera they've made and like they stuck a headphone jack in it.
It's pretty cool.
It is pretty cool. So I keep bouncing around like not talking about the recording modes, and so I do want to touch on that. It can do, I was trying to look for, it can do 20 frames per second in electronic shutter mode. Wow, that is pretty stinking good. Okay, so we talked about it being able to do 6K open gate up to like 30 frames per second. And that's going to do, I think it's 422 10-bit even in that mode. And that's like 200 megabit per second. Good. So that's decent footage. That's decent footage. I don't know if it does have F-Log2. And so you can shoot an F-Log2. Boom, even better. That's probably going to be like 1250 ISO, I would expect on this. Anyways, you can do, they obviously have like 4K and the DCI 4K modes, but you can do 4K up to 60, similar to the XT4. The 4K 60 is going to be like a 1.1 crop, just like a very small crop on the actual footage. And then like obviously you have your 1080p modes. You can do, DCI 1080p or whatever that's called. But that's up to 60 frames per second. No, it's 240 frames per second. So we got 240 FPS, slow-mo, probably no audio in 1080p.
I mean, really, they did like we said at the beginning, they didn't really hold back on the video on this camera.
Mm-mm. You can do over HDMI 10-bit HD up to 120 frames per second, or you can do 12-bit RAW up to 30 frames per second in 6K.
That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, it's like these are really good video specs on an $800 camera.
Well, and we should mention too, it has the screw holes on it to use the cooling accessory.
Oh yeah,
if you want to buy a $300 Fuji fan. But I mean, what's kind of neat about that is if you had a bigger Fuji camera, XH2S or XT5 or whatever, if you wanted to shoot like an interview or something, if you had this camera as like your travel camera, you could very easily use this as your B cam, and you're going to get footage that matches perfectly with your other camera. And, you can still shoot open gate 30 frames per second. Like that's what we shoot in when we shoot interviews. And I think that's a really cool feature of this camera that, you can kind of use it in that like B cam use case.
I would say that when we do shoot in those modes, we're shooting in at least 360 megabit per second all eye.
Yeah, so that's where
And
you might run into trouble is the bit rate.
Yeah, I would sometimes prefer to shoot even higher than that.
Mm-hmm.
Generally, like, we light it well enough that I don't have to push the footage around too much. When I've shot 200 in 6K,
that can feel limiting.
It can be a little limiting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so
you may end up wanting to shoot in 4K, just you're not trying to get as much data. But,
sure, right,
or use that Blackmagic
and the 4K
video.
is oh, yeah, there you go. And the 4K is oversampled. Like, you're oversampling from the 6K sensor. They do have a 4K LR, I think they call it, a long record option for 4K, where you can shoot a 1:1 4K, where it crops in a true pixel size 4K instead
maybe
of doing
less rolling shutter or something like that. Or?
Sure, but it's just shooting the 4K pixels, not oversampled 6K, and so no line skipping or whatever. It's less processor intensive. You can record longer, but still get a 4K image. Cool. It's going to crop in a little bit, but like if you need really long record times, that's available for you. Otherwise, like just regular 4K, I think has like a 50-minute record limit on this camera, and that's probably heat reasons. So just get the stinking like screw in the fan in the back. Yeah. Point is, like, for vlogging stuff, recording yourself, camera on the go for video, this has a lot of really good features. The lack of IBIS, I think, is a bit concerning, but obviously, like, they compromise on that in order to get this as small as possible.
Well, what do you think about the lack of EVF?
I don't really care. I think that for the market that this camera is trying to hit, having no EVF makes total sense. It's just exactly in line with like the ZV E10 that it's competing with. I'm a little annoyed at the resolution of the screen, but also like comparing it once again to the Sony, the screen's basically the same resolution. These cheap, quote unquote cheap, hybrid cameras that are super small, they have these like 1-point-something million dot screens, and it's like, boy, the higher end stuff is like 3.6 or even bigger or even more, and it's like it would be nice to have a higher resolution screen, being that it's your only option for
you just
for
have
viewing.
to know that what you're seeing on the screen isn't necessarily representative of what your footage is going to look like. But I think I'm kind of inclined to agree that it doesn't really bother me that much to not have the EVF. We mentioned that GX85 earlier, which I used to own, and that camera had an EVF, but it was just terrible. It was hard to see, very small, and it feels like basically if you try and cheap out on that, or if you try and make it too small, it's just really not a pleasant experience to use anyway. So I'd almost rather just take that trade-off of having a smaller camera and not having this like probably limited useful EVF, and just give me the smaller size, and I think it's fine.
One of the cool things about this, obviously because it has a flippy screen, you can turn that screen around so that it's closed.
Oh, nice. I like that.
And then you can shoot with no input.
Oh, perfect.
You just no-scope it.
Yeah.
That's how I would use this camera.
Yes.
I would put like a fixed lens on there, and I would just trust the autofocus and just spray and pray.
Street photography.
I don't even need the screen.
I don't know about that.
That's what I would do. I copied a list of items here of like new modes on this. We talked about the new rumors, like not rumors, like they announced the new firmware updates and new focus stuff. And it's like Fuji keeps releasing like new things. And I'm like, bring the new things to my camera.
Yeah, no kidding.
And I'm curious if they're going to bring some of this stuff over. I can imagine like the hardware things and maybe the vlog things necessarily would come. I mean, we're still waiting on waveforms, but neither here nor there. I think we've touched on most of these new like features that they're bringing, things that like maybe the XS20 doesn't have, even though this is kind of like the same camera. We talked about the long play. We talked about the reduced recording modes. We talked about the vertical thing and the 3 microphones. You can set the rotation reach from 60 to 900 degrees for the manual focus range.
And I think you can set that per lens.
That is interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm really into that, Daniel.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it's for focus by wire lenses.
You've always been able to, most of the Fujis are focused by wire, except for the ones that have the clutch in them, even though the clutches are actually focused by wire too. You've always been able to set linear or non-linear for, I wish you could do it per lens, because the 80mm macro demands to be non-linear. Well, you turn that thing forever.
The 80mm macro is what I thought of for this, because that might be one where you'd like to be able to reduce the throw a little bit.
Yeah, being able to set the throw is pretty cool.
Yeah, that is neat.
Yeah, so I would love to see that come to more cameras. Otherwise, they added a recording timer. So you can just set a timer for like 30 or 60 seconds if you're trying to record a certain length and have it like can't only record that much video.
Kind of neat.
The way that I heard that pitched made it sound like you could just record and it would segment things by clips that long, which I don't.
Seems less useful, maybe. I don't know. Maybe it helps if you don't want to do like.
I'm just thinking like
editing.
maybe. Well, but if you are doing real video editing, like for Instagram Reels,
just stop.
I'm just thinking like, or maybe there's people out there who they want to record a 20-minute video, but have it automatically cut that video into 30-second chunks and then post all those chunks onto like TikTok.
Yeah, one per day.
And no, just all at once, and then hopefully the algorithm feeds them in some order that they eventually see the whole thing.
Oh man, but you could design your video that way too, to where it's like a different adventure depending on what order you see the clips in. That'd be kind of neat.
That would be interesting. That would take a lot of planning.
Yeah, it would.
Kind of fun though.
Yeah.
Anyway, they added a green frame recording, like previously added the red one. Now they have a green one, so you know when you're recording in slow-mo.
Yeah, that's probably nice. So you don't accidentally record 20 minutes in 120p.
I do like that they added the lower like 25 megabit and 8 megabit, like for smaller files. I kind of want to record everything in 1080p, 8 megabits per second on one of my cameras.
It's nice to have the flexibility.
Just to have like some really garbage footage. Because like people, like everyone wants to shoot on like point and shoot cameras to get like bad footage. Exactly. I mean, just like turn the resolution down, get the same look.
Yeah.
I don't know what the steady state noise reduction thing is.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the description makes it sound like it's for audio.
Oh, it is audio noise reduction.
Yeah, so it's like having noise canceling headphones or whatever.
Interesting.
Yeah, seems kind of useful.
That could be super useful. And then they had a portrait enhanced feature where things like skin softening and that sort of stuff.
Not interested in that.
Yeah, but still. I mean, these are like all the things that you might want in a vloggy camera. I'm just saying they're putting all the features in there.
I didn't expect Fuji to release this.
No.
Like we were saying not too long ago that it felt like they were going for higher end, like we're going to have these unattainable expensive cameras, we're the new Leica. And this kind of goes against that narrative where it's more affordable. They still really packed it with features, and it seems like they're trying to let people get in, at like a more entry level than their existing cameras. I mean, I think it's a great addition to their lineup.
So I have a couple questions. One, I want to talk about it in context with the ZV-E10 because that is exactly what this is comparable to.
Yeah, I think
like if you're cross-shopping and looking for a vlog camera, it's like it's this or the ZV-E10, honestly, because they're nearly the same camera.
Yeah.
The Sony has better autofocus and is more expensive. And the Fuji is cheaper, has super slick film simulations, and has more record mode options and probably better codecs.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, I'd also maybe be thinking about lenses and also, do I see myself getting another camera, or is this really going to be my only camera? Because I feel like Fuji's going to have more smaller and affordable lenses than Sony will. But Sony has maybe more headroom if you wanted to get into professional stuff later.
Sure, but I would think that if you're buying like a APS-C Sony camera, I mean, you kind of want to get the small lenses to go with your smaller camera. But like they have those options. There's plenty of small camera lenses options for the Sony, maybe more so than for the Fuji.
Yeah, well,
but like for Fuji, all the lenses are small, and so it's like you could build out a decent kit, and that easily grows into like the 18 millimeter f2 is super tiny. That'd be a great lens for this. But then like you can pick up an X-T5 for whatever $1,400 to $1,800, $1,900 if you can find one.
It's true.
And like that's a huge jump up.
I mean, I feel like this camera is probably better than the ZV-E10 except for the autofocus.
Yeah, probably. But Daniel, I mean, haven't seen real tests on the autofocus.
We don't know.
Fuji's over here saying they fixed it.
No, it's just, that's it. It's done.
I mean, like there was the thing that came out, but then there was another interview where like the Fuji people were getting real cocky about it. Like they're like, this is it. We've cracked it. We've solved it.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
It's so good now. What if it is, Daniel? What if they come out with this new firmware update for the autofocus and we're both like, hot dang.
I mean, I'm here for it if it happens, but I'm not holding my breath.
What if it's so good?
I don't know.
I'm fingers crossed, man. Be like, it would just be perfect.
Yeah.
Anyways, so okay, like question, like we don't know how good the autofocus is going to be. The Fuji autofocus is like fine. It's fine. It's perfectly serviceable. It's not like super, super, super good. Well, it's perfectly serviceable. What's wrong with the XM5 besides like the fact there wasn't a 4, a 3, and a 2, and it's very confusing on the name, and like I guess they did 5 because everything else is a 5 except for the 6, the X106, everything else is a 550, the XT5. Anyways, I asked like at the very beginning of this, like, is this the perfect camera? And you're like, come on, Lucas, that's ridiculous. How do you even define perfect camera? What's wrong with this camera?
Well, I mean, if I had to criticize it, I'd say not having an EVF makes it not like the ideal photo camera. Like I'd rather have an XT5 if I'm gonna be shooting in sunlight.
Sure.
I'll be able to look through the EVF.
Definitely.
The battery is a downside for sure.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
Just not going to be as good as.
This thing would last an eternity if it had one of the new batteries in it.
And I mean, yeah, I do think in terms of video, if all you're doing is video, and if you want to do like, you know, more professional stuff, like for vlogging, I think this is perfect. But if you want to shoot interviews and stuff, I could see where the bitrate limits could be a little limiting. You know, so if all you're going to do is like interviews, maybe you'd be better off with something that could handle higher bit rates, you know, XT50 or something. Yeah. But if
you're thinking about this in the context of like, this is your companion camera.
Yeah.
This is like in addition to your phone, and it's like just for life. Like you're going to take pictures and videos of your kids, and you're going to start your YouTube channel, and you have or your TikTok or whatever, and like you're just going to always have this with you.
I mean, for that use case, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I think it's pretty ideal choice.
Would you pick this over an X106?
That's a pretty big question. And honestly, to me, I think it comes mostly down to the 40 megapixel.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, the lens on that X106, I think is really good. It has a leaf shutter, which maybe some people care about. But the lens is a little bit better than, you know, like than what you can get because I think it's a 23 millimeter f2, which you can't get that as a pancake lens. So size wise, it's pretty good. But price, like considering how much more expensive the X106 is, I feel like I'd pick this.
Would you pick this or a Lumix S9? That's $1,000 different.
Yeah, I think that depends on what else you're doing with cameras besides this.
$800, $700.
If this was my only camera, I think I would, or my first camera, I think I'd get this instead. But for me, I'd be thinking, do I want to get another L-mount camera? And in that case, the S9 makes more sense. So
true.
That's how I feel about it, at least.
LUT lab versus film simulations.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think that the video spec features are reasonably competitive between the two. I could see where like the recording features on the Lumix are going to probably be nicer, but the actual video that you get out of it, I couldn't say that one would be better than the other.
Yeah, I think it'd be for what most people be shooting. I think it'd be too close to call.
You'd probably get like if you shoot in that standard profile on the Lumix, it's so contrasty and punchy. Like it looks really, really good. And it's full frame, so that you're going to have a stop cleaner image. Yeah. And so I think that if you're shooting just straight up standard profiles out of camera, the Lumix might look more like candy, a little more punchy. But if you really want like a more nostalgic look, or you want something that looks more like a Turna or Classic Chrome, or has more of a flavor to it, then I think that the Fuji would probably be the better. I think it's going to come down to that. It's going to be like, what image do you want out of the camera? I mean, it's like the color science question that everyone's argued about for years, and I feel like color science has kind of fallen off a little bit because now that everyone knows how to shoot in log. Not everyone, but everyone.
But it's crazy though that the cameras seem that close considering the price difference.
Yeah, for sure. And it's like I think you can justify the price difference because one is full frame.
Sure. And I'm not saying I'm not saying the S9 is overpriced, but it's pretty impressive that Fuji came out with this camera at this price point and it's this good.
I mean, that's like
seems this good.
Classic Fuji stuff, right? Yeah. I mean, like I think the XH2S competes with high-end full-frame cameras, and it's the same price, if not cheaper, than a lot of them.
Yep.
So, anyway,
cool. You think this is a camera you would get?
Like I know because I'm like I have like so many Fuji cameras. But also, yes, in that I love how tiny and small it is, and it would work with all my lenses, and it would be a pretty cool, like, little addition.
Yeah. Yeah, your problem is that when you travel, you usually want to take the XT5.
Yeah.
But if you were like really wanting to pack light, something like this would be great.
When I travel, usually it's like I pick photo as a mode kind of thing of, I wish I did more video when I travel, but honestly, like whenever we're like going someplace and I want to capture all the memories and I want to relive those later, for me, like photos are where I'm going to see them. I'm going to be able to set them as my wallpapers, and like it's going to cycle through on my Chromecast, and like I'm going to go back and look at pictures. I barely ever go back and watch a video. I have so much video on my Synology, and I basically just don't really go back and watch it or do anything with it. I wish I edited more like home movies and home videos and like created little vlog videos of my life and that sort of stuff, but I just don't, despite how much I love video. And I wish, like, I so bad want something like a ZV-E1 or this X-M5, where it's like this cool little tiny vlog camera that I can just always have with me, and I'm like always recording video, and like I can go back and relive those moments. And what I've learned about myself is like I will take snapshot pictures all day, like 10 times more than I'm ever inclined to shoot video. And so for me, it's like if I'm going to go on a trip, I switch flip the switch in my brain that's like I'm in photo mode, and I just don't shoot video. I just shoot photos all the time.
That's interesting.
So I don't know. And like now that I can shoot an Apple log and put that out to Eterna on my phone. I'm just shooting Eterna all the time on my phone.
Yeah, there you go.
And I just super love that.
Yep. So neat camera, but maybe not the one for you.
Maybe not. I mean, if it just happened to me, I wouldn't say no.
Yeah, of course not.
So
they covered some other stuff in this event, but we've gone really long today.
Have we really?
Yeah.
But we haven't even talked about the rumors of the half frame camera, Daniel.
I think we might have to save that for
next week. But Daniel,
week.
Fuji said that they might come out with 2 more cameras this year.
They even had them under little towels. Yeah. Adorable little washcloths on the table.
Like, I know that we have to go, and I was going to make fun of you for having not even opened up those jammers that you bought.
I don't know what you're talking about.
We're going to do that next week because I still think you're having to open them by the time we record again. Challenge issued. What do you think about the half frame camera rumors? Because there's not much to it. There's just like Fuji's going to come out with a half frame camera and it's going to have a 1-inch sensor. Yeah. What do you think?
I think it's silly. I don't understand the point of having a half frame digital camera, because to me, the point of half frame on film is that it's cheap and you get twice as many shots. Mm-hmm. And on digital,
and it's vertical.
On digital, you get unlimited shots.
Yeah. It's like maybe it's a form factor thing of like you're getting a vertical oriented image. But in my half frame is basically APS, like it's APS-C size. It's a little smaller than that. Yeah. So it's like you're already a small sensor. Why get a smaller sensor?
I think they would sell a lot of them because it would be vertical and people would like, oh, it's vertical, and it would probably be a lot cheaper. Like say it's like a $500 camera. I could see people buying it, but I think it's a silly idea.
Yeah, I think I think it has a chance to be a huge hit, especially if it's like an X100 6, but like $500 and super small and has a fixed lens on it.
And with film simulations and
with
all that.
all the film simulations, huge hit. I think it's a dumb idea, and I think they're going to make tons of money.
That's it for the show today. Thanks for joining us, and if you liked it, tell a friend so they can check it out too. You can find out more about the show at www.cameragearpodcast.com, and you can find us on Twitter @CameraGearPod. We'll be back with more next week.